Today, it's a brand new project, and we're gonna cut a truck in half. We're taking a vintage Chevy C-10 that's been hidden in a barn for more than 10 years, and first getting it to run. And then we're gonna hack 20 inches out of the frame and the same amount out back to make it the more popular short bed. That's all today here on Trucks.
Hey guys, welcome to Trucks. Well, the last vintage pickup we had on the show was our 53 F100 Project Old School. Now, we had a ton of email about that old Ford. As a matter of fact, Old School was one of the most popular projects ever to be done on trucks. So we thought it was about time to dig into a vintage Chevy. Now, if you're talking about classic lines and styling, these mid-60s C-10 trucks, they're some of the nicest looking trucks out there. And as a matter of fact, I'm very happy to say that this particular truck, well, it's mine. It's been in our family since it was new. I got it from my father-in-law, Howard L. Copeland, who got it from his dad, Charlie Copeland, who got it from the Blount County Commissioner in the fall of 1966 with less than 200 miles on it. Now, the original 283 V8 and the 3-on-the-tree standard shift have been replaced with the later Model 350 and a 700 R4 automatic. My brother-in-law Randy and I threw a paint job on it about 15 years ago as a Father's Day present. And someday all this stuff, it's going to get freshened up. But one thing's for sure, this truck is going to stay in the family and it's going to stay looking like it is, clean and classic. And this old tag, this has been riding on the truck since 1967. And one thing's for sure, Hardell and Charlie, they're Bama fans.
But check this out. We've got our hands on another 66 Chevy, and this one's a long bed too. Now, the long wheelbase trucks aren't as popular as the short beds, and for that reason, well, they're less expensive and a lot easier to find. Even as clean and original as these two trucks are. But if you're like a lot of folks we know, and your dream truck is a short bed C10, well, you don't have to find one, you don't even have to inherit one. You can make one. And today, we're going to show you how.
But before we do that, we want to take a closer look at our new project vehicle. This thing is so clean and straight. Look at that grill. This truck is living proof that the barn find still exists. So we want to see if it'll fire up.
But don't be tempted to throw a battery in it and see if it'll start. There's definitely a few things you want to check first.
Okay, now here's a red flag. That's breathing through a straw right there. But right here is the jewel. There's some custom body work for you. Ouch, that was modified for the new carburetor and the new fuel inlet.
Well, now that we can see more of our 283, if you look at the carb, it was remanned in December of '99, so we're probably all right there. But we're not going to trust the fuel in the tank. It's probably turned to sludge or varnish by now, so we'll run a new fuel line into the pump from a fresh fuel source just to be safe. Oh, the alternator spins. And the water pump, it's good and tight. I think we're in good shape.
Before we pull the distributor, the position of the vacuum advance and the rotor are marked for reinstallation. Now, when you're pulling a vehicle out of storage, like we are with this truck, spark plugs are an easy thing to check. And these look carboned up and they smell like old gas, so we're just going to start with a clean slate, throw a new set of plugs in.
Now, points are basically nothing more than an old school method of mechanically controlling the coil. And the contact points, well, they wear out over time and they pit. They require filing and periodic adjustment. So we want to replace that with something that won't wear out. So we're going to use a Pertronix Igniter 2 electronic conversion kit. Comes with a magnet ring and the pickup module.
The old points are sent to file 13, and the Pertronix system falls right into place on the stock distributor. The new module hides under a stock cap for an original appearance.
All right, with everything installed and snugged down, you need to measure for clearance in between the pickup module and your magnet ring. You can't have any contact here. So with your distributor shaft bottomed out, you need to have at least 10 thousandths clearance in between here. And with your distributor shaft pushed up, you need to have no more than 60 thousandths. That'll give you a good, accurate signal. If need be, there's shims provided. All right, with the rotor lined up with our original reference mark, you can rotate the distributor body to line up with the other mark we made. That'll keep us in the ballpark when we're setting the timing.
Now, it's not a real good idea to trust the gap on your new plugs. They can shift around in the box and squeeze the gap together. And our old plugs are gapped at 35 thousandths, but since we're upgrading to a new electronic ignition and a higher voltage coil, the new gap is going to be set at 40 thousandths. The new higher voltage coil, socket replacement cap, and wires get dropped on and connected to the new plugs. Let's drive and see if anything comes out the bottom.
Our C10's canister-style oil filter is effective, but messy, especially if you're changing your oil on your back in the driveway. You'll end up wearing the oil. So we're going to add this Mr. Gasket adapter so we can use a modern spin-on style filter. Old oil can actually acidify in the pan, as well as wick moisture in over time. So an oil change should be pretty high up on your list when you're reviving a stored engine. Give it a shot, man. Sounds good, man.
Sounds good.
We got oil pressure?
About 40 pounds.
Sweet. No fuel leaks.
Now that we know she runs, after the break, we'll saw this beauty in half.
No turning back now.
It's no magic trick. Stick around.
Hey, welcome back. We've started a whole new project with a 66 Chevy half-ton, one-owner barn-find truck that we were lucky enough to get our hands on. It's still sporting its original paint, and the drivetrain is bone stock, right down to the brakes. The wood bed, well, it's mostly termite food, but all the hardware is good and solid.
So now that we know that it runs good too, now it's time to start hacking it up. Making a long wheelbase into a short wheelbase is not without its set of challenges. You have to section the frame the right place, the right way. And shrinking that body, well, nobody makes a new short wheelbase bedside for this 66 Chevy truck. So shortening the body presents its own unique set of challenges. And we'll talk more about that later. But for now, it is teardown time.
Okay, so we're tearing another truck down to the frame. This is for a couple of reasons. So we can get to the right place to section our frame and to be able to give you guys a very clear look at what we're doing in case you ever want to do the same thing. The 12-inch section gets removed in between the front and rear cab mounts. So the rear mounts get hacked off and relocated later. Here's a cheap and easy way to mark your cut lines. A quick coat of black paint and a silver Sharpie give you a nice contrast and a clear map of where you'll be cutting.
We've measured to cut a 12-inch section out of this frame. One thing you don't want to do, whether you're lengthening or shortening a frame, is just to do a straight cut. It's not as strong. You want to do what's called a Z-cut. Now, it's pretty obvious what we're doing here. This piece goes away, and that piece goes away, and the two pieces join together. It does two things. It locates your frame rail to help you do a parallel joint, and it triples the weld strength, so it triples the strength of your frame.
Now before you break out the saws and the cutters, you're gonna wanna brace the frame. We're using tubing that'll stabilize the frame once it's cut in two and make it easier for the frame to slide back together. Now getting a straight cut with a plasma cutter can be next to impossible. Using simple guides like these will give you almost complete control.
If you don't have a plasma cutter, don't worry. An inexpensive cutoff wheel works great too, but it'll tax your air compressor pretty hard.
All right, give it a shot.
All right.
No turning back now.
We're going to clean these edges up and then bevel the edges inside and out for better weld penetration.
You good?
Yeah.
That's good right there.
Okay, we look good. It looks nice and square, but before you weld, you want to make sure that it is square. You want to measure front to rear, find a common point of reference on each rail, and then more importantly, you want to exit out, measure like this and like this in an X pattern. That will tell you if your frame's square. Don't commit to weld until you've measured at least twice. Okay, we got 47 3/8 to the center of the front bed mount.
All right, there's center of the hole.
Yep, 47 3/8.
Are we on?
We're right on.
Sweet. All right, there's center of the hole.
Okay, 59 1/8 to the front, or to the middle of the rivet.
All right, there's center of the hole.
Okay, we got 59 3/16.
It's within a 16th. Let's burn this thing in before it moves.
Better do it. That's well within the 1/4 inch factory tolerances, so this thing's gonna track great.
Over the break, we'll tack the frame back together. And when we come back, we'll show you how to weld it together the right way. Then we'll cut more than 1.5 feet out of the bed.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks. If you're just joining us, well, we've started a brand new project today, the 66 C-10 long wheelbase pickup. And believe it or not, we cut it in half, but just to make the more popular short wheelbase version out of it. And today we've made a lot of progress.
And we've already got one frame rail completely welded up. And the driver's side, well, we got it partially welded. And before we go any further, we want to show you a few important things to keep in mind. You need good solid weld penetration, and that's seen by the bluing or the heat affected zone. Now on the back side of our Z-cut, I went ahead and filled in the weld at a lower voltage setting to lower the risk of burning through. And now that I've got good base metal, we can turn up the voltage a little bit and make sure we have good solid weld penetration. Now I know it's easy on a project like this to get anxious and want to hurry up and finish this weld, but you definitely want to let this cool naturally. Resist the temptation to cool it off with compressed air or spraying it down with water. You're not going to do the metal any favors, and you're probably going to end up warping it.
Now it's pretty obvious that we need a new bed floor. So we got one from LMC Truck, a brand new stock replacement short wheelbase oak kit that they've got in their catalogs. But it also drives home the point that we've got 12 inches too much room on the front and 8 inches too much room on the back, just like our frame. So now you got to make some decisions. And you're not without options if you're doing a short wheelbase conversion like we are. You can go with a step side bed. There's bed sides and fenders available aftermarket that are pretty reasonably priced. Or you could get a used short bed. But you know as well as I do that a 40-year-old bed, well, it's probably going to have some rust. So you can spend your time fixing rust on a short bed, or you can spend your time sectioning a virtually rust-free long bed like we've got here. Either way, it's a wash for time, but this is going to be a lot more fun. But keep in mind, when you're sectioning sheet metal, no matter how straight or how flat that panel looks, there's a crown or a contour engineered into it for strength. And what happens if you end up lobbing a big chunk out of the middle? Well, you disturb that crown and create a situation that you're going to have to repair, either with filler or metal finishing techniques. Either way, you cause a lot more work for yourself. So what we've decided to do is take our 12-inch section out of the front of the bed and our 8-inch section out of the rear of the bed, right here next to the end. This does two things for us. Number one, it creates a factory-looking bedside. Number two, we get to retain the original contour of this panel.
Now to finish this thing off, we're going to reinforce the welded joint with what's referred to as a fish plate. We're going to mount ours to the inside of the frame rail, so from the outside, it gives a nice factory appearance.
Now to do the 12-inch section at the front of the bed, on the top of the rail I'm going to do an offset cut. That's going to allow me to keep the stake pocket for a more original look.
Our damaged front bed panel gets removed to give us better access for cutting and welding, and will be replaced with a new panel from LMC. The 12-inch front section is trimmed using masking tape as a guide. You don't want to force the blade. This can cause too much heat, excessive blade wear, and metal warping. With a final test fit, the front cap is ready to tack into place. The surrounding metal is ground back about ½ inch for welding. For sheet metal, we're using a smaller .024 welding wire, along with a lower voltage setting of about 14 volts, and a slow wire speed. We created this overlap on the front inner panel for added strength. Out back, the same techniques are used with an offset cut to retain the stake pocket location. The cut on the back edge is made roughly ¼ inch from the factory rolled seam. This is so the appearance of the factory seam is not distorted, and the end result will be an invisible section. With both rear sections cut out, we've left small strips of metal to hold the rear panels in place. Since the rear tie bar is attached to both end panels, Tom Boschers was nice enough to lend us an extra set of hands to help us finish and locate our rear sections.
There it is.
After the break, we'll show you how to keep all these fresh cuts from rusting until you're ready to finish the job. Stay tuned.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks. We're taking care of a few last-minute details on our long to short bed conversion, such as cutting 8 inches out of the back of these frame rails to match the 8 inches we took out of the back side of the bed. We've also relocated our rear cab mounts 12 inches back from their original position to compensate for the 12-inch section we took out of this part of the frame. And we've mounted it back to the frame rail using grade 8 hardware we got from Industrial Depot.
Now this is just a mock-up, since we're going to have to blow this truck apart to refinish the frame anyway.
There you go. Well, it took us about 30 hours to get to this point. So if you got a couple good buddies and a couple of weekends to spare, you can turn your long wheelbase truck into a short one. No problem.
Okay, here are a couple of things for you diesel truckers. MagnaFlow now offers this new catalytic converter design for Ford, Chevy, and Dodge diesel pickups in both a universal and this direct fit configuration. Their 6-inch converter body is combined with mandrel bent stainless steel tubing, OE flanges, and hangers to make this an easy bolt-on. But what's important here, this is a high-performance cat designed for maximum airflow while keeping you legal in all 50 states. Now, MagnaFlow's new diesel catalytic converters start at about $900 for universal cats and about $1,300 for bolt-on applications.
If you've got an 04.5 to 06 Dodge with a 5.9 Cummins in it, well, Painless Performance has something for you. They've just come out with this Striker 1 power module. Now, I know you're saying, yeah, you've showed us programmers before, it's nothing new. Well, this is not a programmer. You can get a safe 100 horsepower and an extra 200 foot-pounds of torque without getting into your vehicle's computer or settings. It's an easy 4-plug hookup, and the Striker module intercepts and reinterprets the vehicle information and helps the computer make more power. The Striker 1 settings range from fuel economy all the way up to high output. The display shows boost pressure, fuel pressure, and it even has an anti-theft mode. The Striker 1 from Painless Performance Products comes in at about $600. That's about $6 per horsepower. Not bad. Here's a tip for you guys that might be short on time. I'm finished with my metal work, but unfortunately I can't do the body work right now. We got to push this truck out and get another one in here. So I'm using a conversion coating called Piclix 20. You spray it on, wipe off the excess, and you're done. The manufacturer claims that it stops flash rusting indefinitely and it's safe to paint, weld, and powder coat on top of. So now your metal work is going to wait for you until you're ready to finish it. Thanks for watching Trucks. We'll see you guys next week.